I think we over dribbled at times. Our off-ball movement wasn't there. We did a lot of standing. It's almost like we gave the ball to Kelsey and just tried to watch her work. And that's not when we're at our best. I mean, yes, certainly we want to have the ball in our hands, but we've got to continue to get movement with and without the basketball. It was getting stuck. I mean, we want to play 0.5 to 1 second basketball, and we weren't. And it's got to get moving. And
it was supposed to be a statement win. Indiana held a 13-point lead over a Mystics team, buried at the bottom of the standings. The Fever looked composed, focused, and in control until they weren't.
Sophie, till late in the third quarter, you guys were struggling offensively in that frame. Second half in general didn't feel the same as the first half on that end. Did something change for you guys? What did you see as kind of leading to stalling on that end?
Yeah, I think we were just kind of slow. And every time that we're slow, especially defensively, it just somehow affects our offense.
With just over 6 minutes left before halftime, that lead evaporated in stunning fashion. Washington flipped the game with a brutal 22-7 run that left the home crowd silent and the Fever scrambling. The shift wasn't powered by a superstar takeover. There was no flashy fourth quarter explosion. Instead, Indiana simply let go of the wheel. Careless turnovers mounted, defensive rotations broke down, and most damning of all, the offense came to a grinding halt.
Playing for the Buckeyes.
Here is the Buckeye product on the backdoor pass, but Mitchell lost the handle. Sutton thought about the three, steps in, Hull got a piece. Dolson has been wide open all possession, splashes home a three, and we are level at 47.
The Fever's ball movement disappeared, possessions dragged into isolation plays, and their early rhythm collapsed under pressure. In just minutes, a comfortable double-digit lead became a vulnerable one-possession game. Washington smelled blood and didn't let up.
Sims with 5 off the bench. Indiana has 8 first-quarter bench points. That's typically been a strength when they're playing well, as Iriafen just bullies her way inside. Now Citron being guarded by Lexi Hull. Hull goes over the screen, defends her really well. Citron just has to fire it up, and a circus shot for Citron.
They hit open threes, crashed the glass, and got to the free throw line with ease, 26 times by the final buzzer. Meanwhile, Indiana's offense kept stalling, and the energy shift was obvious. A team that had been rolling was now lost, unable to recover momentum or steady the ship. But how did a team with playoff urgency fall apart so quickly? Was it fatigue, coaching, or something deeper? Comment below. Was this a mental collapse or a failure in leadership? This wasn't a game lost because of lack of effort or missing firepower.
It's up to the chat. Get excited!
Why at the same time? Because I'm you and you're me. We switch bodies. Zubbed in the chat.
Statistically, Indiana had more than enough to win.
On their ball screen coverages right now.
Here's Mitchell on the handoff, bounce pass. Boston one bounce and a left-handed finish. Here's Boston, the offensive rebound, flips inside to Howard, who lays it in.
You go step up screen, flare on the weak side. They had to make sure they had the right shot clock time as well while they were reviewing that.
So Indiana with a 10-point lead here, 6 minutes until halftime as Boston finds some space and knocks it down.
Aaliyah Boston was a force inside, finishing with 20 points and 9 rebounds. Every time she touched the ball, the Mystics had to react. She anchored the paint, created mismatches, and demanded attention. On paper, that kind of performance should anchor a win. Kelsey Mitchell played the role of both scorer and facilitator. She poured in 14 points and handed out 9 assists, constantly driving the tempo, creating looks, and shouldering the burden of being Indiana's primary offensive engine. The problem wasn't her production, it was how much she had to do alone. Then there was Sophie Cunningham, who didn't just bring scoring, she brought edge. Her final line, 8 points, 6 assists, 3 steals, and 1 highlight reel moment that briefly flipped momentum back Indiana's way. She defended hard, created plays, and refused to go down without a fight.
Above her head is Cunningham with a steal.
Cunningham feeds Sims, who goes coast to coast and lays it in.
They had to make sure they had the right shot clock time as well while they were reviewing that.
So Indiana with a 10-point lead here, 6 minutes until halftime as Boston finds some space and knocks it down. Now Sims launches ahead for Mitchell. What a pass by Odyssey Sims.
And off a hardship contract, Odyssey Sims looked like the stabilizing presence Indiana desperately needed. In just her second game, she added 11 points and brought the closest thing to a true point guard presence the Fever had on the floor. Her ability to handle the ball and get them into sets kept the offense from falling apart entirely. Add in the contributions from Nalissa Smith and Katie Lou Samuelson, and it becomes even clearer. This roster had the pieces, the players showed up, the energy was there, the stats backed it up.
Oh, gets it into Boston. Hand off Mitchell. Indiana has to hurry. Lob back for Boston. Boston finishes. It's a 2-point game, 5.9 seconds remaining.
The problem? All that individual production never translated into a cohesive plan. The numbers looked good, but the strategy didn't. There were no late game adjustments, no counterpunches when Washington started dictating the tempo. The team didn't lack fire, it lacked direction. They had the talent, they had the momentum. So why did it feel like nobody was driving the bus? Stick around, because in the next section, we dig into the coaching decisions that turned a winnable game into another painful loss. If you were watching this game in real time, one question became impossible to ignore. Where was the plan? Indiana didn't get outplayed, they got outcoached. And the fans knew it. Stephanie White's post-game explanation focused on the usual culprits: stalled offense, foul trouble, and missing pieces. But what stood out more than what she said was what she avoided, taking responsibility for the decisions that could have changed the game. Let's start with the most glaring one: Chloe Bibby's absence. She didn't log a single minute, not one. This is a shooter hitting 42% from deep this season. And in a game where Indiana's offense became painfully predictable, spacing the floor with a proven shooter wasn't just an option, it was necessary. White claimed she kept Bibby out due to defensive matchup concerns, specifically rebounding and switch-heavy coverages that she believed Bibby couldn't handle against Washington's physicality. But that explanation fell flat. The Fever still surrendered 26 free throws. They still gave up wide-open threes, and they still got bullied in the paint by Kiki Iriafen, who put up 18 points and 12 boards. So if the defense fell apart anyway, fans are left wondering, why not try the one thing that might have unclogged the offense? Instead, the Fever leaned harder into isolations, funneling everything through Kelsey Mitchell while spacing vanished and shooters stood glued to the perimeter.
Cunningham looking, finds Mitchell, launches a corner three, it won't go, rebound Ainxler, and this young Washington Mystics group who continues to impress throughout this season, and Sidney Johnson in his first year comes up with a big win on the road.
Then there's the rotation. White rode with 7, maybe 8 players, leaving others on the bench as the starters got visibly gassed. By the fourth quarter, effort was still there, but positioning broke down, reaction slowed, and Washington capitalized. Rotating fresh legs isn't just about depth, it's about buying time for your stars to finish strong. Indiana didn't, and it showed. It wasn't about hindsight, it was about real-time choices that were never made. Coming up next, how Sophie Cunningham's post-game fire exposed the growing disconnect between the locker room and the sideline. While the post-game press conference unfolded, there was one voice that cut through all the noise, and it wasn't the coaches. It was Sophie Cunningham. She didn't sugarcoat anything. No long-winded cliches, no vague comments about adversity, just raw, unfiltered truth. Her message? We've had hard injuries, but we have to get back to being dogs. That line exploded across social media, not because it was catchy, but because it was honest. It came from a player who just spent 35 minutes giving everything on the floor and still wasn't satisfied. For Cunningham, effort wasn't the issue, identity was. She called out the team's lack of aggression, pointed to moments when they got outworked, and challenged the entire roster to remember who they are. And fans heard her. In just a few sentences, Cunningham voiced what so many were thinking. The Fever are no longer feared. Opponents don't walk into games worried about Indiana's edge. They see a team that cracks under pressure, a team that gives away leads and second chances. And that reality, it burned. But what stood out most wasn't what Cunningham said. It was how different it felt from Stephanie White's response. While Cunningham spoke like someone taking responsibility, White talked like someone trying to explain it away. Her focus was on execution and fouls. Hers was a breakdown of stats, but Cunningham made it personal. We need to stop making excuses. We've faced adversity. Now we need to stop getting outworked. The contrast couldn't have been more clear. One side of the locker room is calling for urgency and accountability. The other is still talking about how tough tough the season has been. And that growing gap between player and coach, it's no longer just a rumor. It's showing up in real time. Next, we break down how Indiana's stuck offense became the symbol of a deeper coaching issue. There's a phrase that echoed again and again after the final buzzer. The offense got stuck. Stephanie White used it to describe what happened when possessions broke down, when movement stopped, and when everything defaulted to Kelsey Mitchell in isolation. But here's the thing. Fans didn't need to hear it in a press conference. They saw it live.
It hurts. I mean, think if we had 8 turnovers for 13 points in the second half as well. So we didn't take care of it.
Late in the game, the pattern was obvious. Mitchell brings the ball up, defenders collapse into the paint, shooters stand flat-footed on the perimeter, and the possession ends with a contested shot or a turnover. Wash, rinse, repeat. There was no off-ball action, no pick-and-pop threats, and no weak-side creativity. Just one player tasked with doing everything.
And I think it was something like a 22-7 run, the end of the second, beginning of the third quarter. And those are hard to recover from when anytime really, but when you're missing pieces. And we've got to make sure that we're sharper at times. We don't have the margin to have lulls within quarters. And then I believe they had something like 21 points from free throw line and turnovers of their 26 in the fourth. And we control that, defending without fouling. We control that, taking care of the basketball, decision making at times, and some of it's playing some people out of position, and some of it's just not being valuing the basketball in the way that we need to value it, being a little sloppy with it.
And when White said the offense got stuck, she wasn't wrong, but she also wasn't owning the fact that it was her system that created that mess.
With Chloe Bibby tonight, were there thoughts maybe plugging her in to try and spark the offense a little bit, or what was the decision behind not playing her?
Yeah, there were some thoughts. I think that it matched up defensively more than anything with the way that we were going to try to play them, or in some of our switches and things like that. So that was mostly the reason.
And then just with the rotation, was it just those eight or seven that you ran with? Was it just they were flowing well and you wanted to just leave that going, or what was the thought there?
Yeah, I think some of it was defense. Being able to execute the type of defensive coverages that we wanted to have against this, the way that they play.
Spacing is a coach's responsibility. Rotations are a coach's responsibility. Using shooters to pull defenders out of the paint, again, that's on the sideline. Yet Chloe Bibby, one of the team's best floor spacers, remained glued to the bench. Instead of deploying her to stretch the floor and give Mitchell room to operate, White doubled down on the same sets that Washington had already sniffed out. Mitchell was 6 for 9 from the field, incredibly efficient, but by the end she was worn down, forced to create everything from scratch while defenders collapsed around her. And it wasn't just that the offense was stuck, it was that everybody knew it and nothing changed. Even the players seemed to sense it. Cunningham hinted post-game that too many possessions turned into standing around and watching Mitchell. White echoed the same idea, but without offering a reason why they kept leaning into a setup that clearly wasn't working. This wasn't just a failure in execution, it was a failure in adjustment. Coming up, injuries were a factor, but did they really excuse the lack of solutions? We explore how missing players expose deeper flaws in strategy, not just depth.
Indiana with their work cut out for them here. 6-point deficit, just over 5 minutes left to play. Mitchell, feed inside. There's an easy 2 for Boston. Cunningham leans in, thought she drew the foul. Boston pulls down the rebound and lays it in.
Let's be clear, the Fever are battered. Their backcourt is shredded. Caitlin Clark is still sidelined. Sydney Colson and Ari McDonald both suffered season-ending injuries in the same week. That kind of loss would rattle any team's chemistry. But here's the part that matters. Injuries didn't cause this collapse. They exposed something that was already broken. This game wasn't lost because Indiana didn't have the right personnel. It was lost because the pieces they did have weren't used right. Odyssey Sims, signed under hardship, was one of the most impactful players on the floor. She attacked defenders, kept possessions alive, and gave the Fever the closest thing to a true point guard presence. Her 11 points and relentless tempo gave Indiana a fighting chance, and she did it with barely any time to integrate. So why was it that the players who were new to the team looked more decisive than the ones managing it? This is where coaching and system overlap. Yes, it's tough to adjust when the lineup keeps changing, but basketball doesn't stop for adversity. Teams that win in the postseason are the ones who adapt, the ones who find a way even when the deck is stacked against them. Instead, the Fever fell back into safe habits, predictable sets, short rotations, overuse of players like Mitchell while shooters went unused. It felt less like a coaching adjustment and more like a coaching retreat, falling into what's familiar instead of what's effective.
You can never really control the outside things. You can't control injuries, and so that's why you really do have to control your mental and control what you can control. And I think that we have a really good group. We're still a tight-knit group. We're adding new players in that are amazing. O's been around the league for a long time, and I know you don't think so, but it's a blessing that you weren't on another team because we need you here. And so I just think it's an adjustment period. The highs and lows, you just have to stay kind of steady, right? Every team faces it. I feel like we faced it more than most this year, but I think this is going to set us up for something good. I don't know if it's this season. I don't know if it's next season, but I think there's always something that you can be grateful for and learn during those hard times.
Even Sophie Cunningham acknowledged the adversity, but she didn't use it as an excuse. She said flat out, "We've had hard injuries, but we've got to adjust. We need our new players, but we also need to stop getting outworked."
I think the thing that we just have to continue to do that kind of got us on the run we had before the last couple games was we were aggressive at the opponent attack on defense, and that led to easy transition buckets. That led to everyone being aggressive and on their front foot on the offensive end. And, we have new players, and that's okay, but, we just have to adjust, and we need them. We've faced a lot of adversity, but we should be used to that by now. And I think they could just kind of outwork us a little bit, and that just can't be our excuse.
That's the difference. The players aren't hiding behind setbacks. They're looking for solutions. But are they getting them? Next, the disconnect that's growing between the locker room and the coaching staff, and why it's now impossible to ignore. This isn't just about X's and O's anymore. It's about trust. And right now, that trust between the players and the coaching staff, it's cracking. After the loss, you didn't have to read between the lines. The contrast between what the players said and what the coach said was crystal clear. Sophie Cunningham didn't hold back.
Sophie, what was the message inside the locker room? What were you guys talking about there after the game?
Yeah, I just think that we've had some hard injuries this year. We've had some different lineups and roster spots. And, to be frank, I don't think anyone else around the league thinks that we can do it anymore. But I think that our group does. And I think that we just have to get that confidence back. When we're clicking offensively, defensively, we're scary. And not a lot of teams can beat us, even with the roster that we have right now. And so for us, it's just remembering who we are. It's our identity. We got to get back to being dogs, got to get back to being aggressive, being on our front foot, and not allowing teams like this to come in here and outwork us.
Her words were direct. We've got to get back to being dogs. She spoke like someone who knows the team has lost its edge and knows it won't come back unless they start demanding more from themselves and each other. Now compare that to Stephanie White. White's post-game breakdown leaned on familiar themes. She talked about how the offense got stuck, how the team committed too many fouls, how injuries made things difficult. These weren't lies, but they weren't leadership either. They were symptoms, not solutions. And more importantly, they didn't answer the biggest question fans were screaming online. Why didn't you adjust when the game was slipping away? This is the divide that has fans furious. One side of the locker room, the players, is asking for accountability. The other side, the coaching staff, is explaining problems without taking ownership for them. And fans aren't dumb. They can tell when a team is aligned. This one isn't.
The past couple games where it feels like kind of that wear and tear's taking a toll?
Not really. And I think that she kind of hit it. You have to give yourself a little bit of grace. When you have so many different lineups, O and I have never played together. O hasn't played with a lot of people, maybe Tosh. But you have to know her style. She has to know our style. And so it's different, but that's part of being a pro. You got to adjust and you got to learn fast. And I think that's a really cool thing too, because when you click, you click. And so that's scary for people coming in here and trying to play us.
Cunningham and Boston both talked about identity, about toughness, about refusing to be outworked. But while they were out on the court trying to claw back from a broken game plan, the coaching staff was sitting on solutions like Chloe Bibby and choosing not to use them. There's no stat that explains that kind of disconnect. But the feeling, you could see it in every stagnant possession and every defensive miscue. White wasn't asked to be perfect. She was asked to respond, and she didn't. And now with the fever slipping in the standings, the question becomes unavoidable. Should Stephanie White still be leading this group, or has the locker room already moved on without her? With the regular season winding down and Indiana now sitting in 7th place, the pressure is real. This wasn't just another loss. It was a winnable game that mattered. A loss that could cost them playoff positioning or the playoffs entirely. And the worst part, they didn't get out-talented. They outplayed themselves.
Bullies are way inside.
What a pass by Melvin, too. Really nice.
Mitchell turns on the Jets and gets to the rim.
No one can keep Keller is one of the best rebounders out of her area, which means the ball not directly above her head is Cunningham with a steal.
Cunningham feeds Sims, who goes coast to coast and lays it in. So 4 quick ones for Indiana.
The roster gave enough. Boston dominated inside. Mitchell was surgical as a playmaker. Cunningham brought leadership, grit, and fire. Sims stepped in and gave them exactly what they were missing. This wasn't a team giving up. This was a team giving everything with no guidance on how to finish.
Sophie, till late in the third quarter, you guys were struggling offensively in that frame. Second half in general didn't feel the same as the first half on that end. Did something change for you guys? What did you see as kind of leading to stalling on that end?
Yeah, I think we were just kind of slow And every time that we're slow, especially defensively, it just somehow affects our offense.
So where does that leave the Fever? That's where you come in. Should Stephanie White be the one guiding this team through the final stretch of the season? Or is it time to make a change, not just for the playoffs, but for the long-term direction of this franchise? Because this isn't just about rotations or a bad night. It's about what happens when players are demanding more and the bench keeps delivering less. The longer this disconnect between effort and leadership lingers, the harder it will be for this team to find consistency. Momentum doesn't last forever, neither does buy-in. And if this continues, Indiana might lose more than just games. They might lose the trust of the very players who are doing everything to stay in the fight. So we'll ask again, should Stephanie White be replaced, or does she deserve the chance to finish what she started? Let us know in the comments, because your voice matters, and the team needs it now more than ever. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. Click the video on the screen now for more Fever coverage, and we'll see you there.